I believe with great power comes great responsibility, and us as humans having the ability to end suffering, to recognize what suffering is, empathize with that, sympathize with that, and be able to end it is such a gift. My fiance and I recently had to put our dog to rest, and in this video I'm going to be sharing some of the reasons as to how we knew it was time, in hopes of lending some community to anyone out there who might be going through something similar and is having to make this hard choice. I'll give you a little bit of context. So Freya was a nearly 14-year-old German Shepherd. She was spayed at 6 months old, and at 2 years old, her hips went out and she was diagnosed with severe hip dysplasia. I met Freya when my fiance and I met a few years ago, and right off the bat, I could tell that she was in pain. You know, she had arthritis, she had hip dysplasia, but she was a very alert, happy, social girl. She just really struggled to move around because she was in pain. Over the years, my fiance Asa has tried numerous medications, oral and injectable, all of which either she threw up or just flat out didn't work, unfortunately. If anything, a few of them made her less social and less happy-go-lucky and wanting to see what was going on in the house. When I look back on photos of her from last year, her muzzle is way less gray than it was the day that she was put to rest. And this just tells me the last year has been very, very hard and stressful on her body. This coming winter, so about a month ago when the season started to change and it started to get colder outside, that really affects dogs who are in pain, and humans. Arthritis and hip dysplasia are both way more painful in the winter when it's cold outside. And I noticed it, you know, she had a really hard time standing up. She had a lot harder of a time. She was really slow moving, you know, from inside to the backyard. It seemed like she was waiting until the last minute to have to get up in order to go to the bathroom. So she was actually starting to poo on the concrete. And that was probably one of the biggest signs that my suspicions were correct, and that her quality of life is starting to go downhill. I used to be able to walk her down our block for a little sniff walk, and the day we put her to rest, she couldn't even make it down the driveway. Since I met my fiance, even giving her baths was really difficult. She always looked a little bit raggedy because she couldn't stand for long periods of time, even in the amount of time that I've known her. And we were able to make do. I mean, at the end of the day, my fiance kind of uses dogs like farm dogs, and I'm a professional dog trainer. I understand there's a lot of different ways to raise a dog. Some I don't agree with, but I think a farm dog not getting a bath once a month is fine. She wasn't in pain because of her coat. But in the last 2 weeks leading up to her being put to rest, I was no longer able to trim her nails or even brush her without her yelping in pain. And that was another indicator to me that this isn't fair to her. She also ebbed and flowed, you know? Some days she was really great and other days she wasn't. But the difficult thing for us was that she was still so happy, so social, very alert, and loved just sitting up and watching and observing and being around the other dogs and people and us. So her mind was still there, but her body was just deteriorating and failing her. That's a really sad reality that a lot of us humans are also going to likely go through. So while it was very, very difficult to make the final call, we called an in-home vet. That way, you know, even transporting her, putting her into the vehicle, it was very painful for her, going over bumps and taking turns. She could barely keep herself stable. So we had an in-home vet come. She was absolutely wonderful. If anybody's in the San Diego area and looking, I'm more than happy to let you know what company it was and what vet it was. She was amazing. And Freya's no longer in pain. I think she loved being around and she loved observing and she loved her siblings, but at the end of the day, at this point, she didn't know life without pain, and we could not put her through another winter, especially with her body just rapidly deteriorating from underneath her. So I hope that if you are in a similar position or in a similar position in the future, you find comfort in knowing that this is the deal that we make with them, right? But she's no longer in pain, and that's what matters most.